tell you what, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you what.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Tell You What, the podcast. We talk with musicians about the creative process and related topics. Our guest today is musician and now author Jason Narducy, who also happens to be our neighbor right here in Evanston, Illinois. Jason released a really excellent book late last year titled Mostly the Van. It's a memoir of sorts, a collection of stories from his life on the road as a musician. I have to say, I really enjoyed this book. It is so well put together. Jason has a real gift for choosing and relating these often awkward, poignant, and quite funny stories. He really draws the reader in and gives us a van's eye view of his fascinating musical life. I met Jason a while back. I was randomly seated next to him at a concert here in Evanston. We had a great chat. He couldn't have been nicer. I was then gifted his book at Christmas time by my open mic pal Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. And after reading it, I reached out to Jason, who graciously agreed to come over to Tell You What HQ to sit down and record this discussion. As it turns out, Jason lives close to our home studios here. We spent some time discussing what a great place Evanston is. Usually I do not do the thing of reading my guest's full bio in the introduction, as the conversations generally walk us through their journeys. But in this case I will, as Jason has done and continues to do an awful lot of stuff. And getting his background up front will help listeners frame our discussion, which kind of jumps around a lot. So Jason's musical life started pretty early. At age 10, he was playing guitar and writing songs in the punk band Verboten. This band happened to feature Dave Grohl's cousin as lead singer, and Dave famously has credited Verboten with inspiring him to pursue a life in music. Jason was eventually featured in an episode of the Foo Fighters documentary Sonic Highways. After college, Jason formed the acoustic duo Jason and Allison with cello player Allison Chesley, releasing one album, and then the duo morphed into the four-piece rock band Verbo, which released two albums on the Epic label. In 2005, Jason joined Bob Mould's band as bassist and backing vocalist, and he has been a member of the band since, touring and playing on Bob's last 6 albums. Since 2013, Jason has also been touring as bassist for the indie rock band Superchunk, and recently toured as guitarist and backing vocalist for the emo band Sunny Day Real Estate. Along the way, Jason has also pursued his solo project, Split Single, touring and releasing 3 albums, which featured participation from the likes of Spoon's Britt and R.E.M's Mike Mills. The project occupying a lot of Jason's time currently is his work with Chicago actor Michael Shannon, performing the music of R.E.M. This project has drawn raves all over the country, and also happens to have the blessing of the members of R.E.M. themselves. In fact, at recent shows in Athens, Georgia, all 4 members of R.E.M. appeared on stage and performed with the band. There is more, but you get the idea. And all of these years on the road and in the studio with these interesting folks has provided Jason with plenty of anecdotes to relate in his book. A couple of quick notes. You can order a copy of Jason's book, Mostly the Van, at porchlightbooks.com. As Jason points out, they are offering free shipping. You can find Jason on Instagram at Jason Narducy, and his post there will give you info on his various tour dates and projects. One more quick thing. In our conversation, Jason tells a great story involving Bill Berry, and just for clarity's sake, for those who might not know, Bill was the drummer for the band R.E.M. So thanks again to Jason. As you have just heard, he is quite a busy musician, so I'm very grateful he took the time out to sit down for this conversation. And now, please enjoy this Tell You What discussion with Jason Narducy. Jason Narducy, welcome to Tell You What, the podcast. Thank you for making the pilgrimage to the Tell You What Epiplex today.
I flew in this morning and got a hotel and then took a lift over here. But yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
The journey doesn't seem to have done too much damage to you.
Does it look like I just rolled out of bed? Because I did.
I wouldn't say that, but now that you mention it.
It was a very nice surprise to get the email that you do your podcast in your house that's 4 minutes from my house.
Yes, we are indeed neighbors. Let's give Evanston a quick, well-deserved shout out. My family loves it here. You were raised here and chose to raise your family here. You must like it.
I do. I mean, saying I was raised here there's a lot of Chicago in there too.
Yeah.
Having divorced parents, but I ended up going to high school here and then moving back to Chicago as a young adult and then coming back.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a big enough city that you don't get bogged down in being in your hometown, what is it, 80,000 people or something. But I rarely run into people that I went to school with. And
yeah, you won't probably have to run into me again after this. So
well, we ran into each other once,
we
right?
Did.
And then the fact that I travel a lot probably helps me not mind being in the same place.
Right. But there are also a lot of, I've found it remarkable how many creative people live in this
or come from here.
City or come from here of all stripes.
Yes.
Right. So you got TV and movie people, visual artists.
I just had lunch with Tim Kazurinsky, who lives over on Sheridan. And a really good music, as you know, but like, Freako and Free Range. And there's a lot of Evanston-based music from young people, which I love. Having been one once.
Well, Jason, the reason you're here, congratulations on the book, mostly the van.
Thank you.
I hold it in my hand. You can hear that. It's an actual book. I really enjoyed this book. Seems to have been pretty well received. Must feel pretty good.
I've been really grateful for the response. I've never done anything like this before, and it's self-published, so it's kind of a learn-as-I-go thing. But as I've done with the 3 split single records, I just feel good about creating something and getting it out there. I'm not great about the minutia of distribution and things like that. I just tend to make things and release them and then try to promote them in a way that makes sense to me. And then because this is my first book, I'm learning a lot as I go. And I've had authors and other, kind of publishing adjacent people give me really good advice about the next one and what I can possibly do with it. And it's good. I have friends who have published books with, big publishing companies, and they made it very clear to me that there's not any money in that. Yeah. And so I said, well, if there's not any money anyways, why don't I just do this myself? You know? Not to say that I wouldn't be open to that at some point if that's a possibility. But once I figured out what was comfortable for me and not taking on a whole, first of all, when you're not famous, you shouldn't write about where you were born and what your childhood was like because no one gives a shit. Yeah. I mean, even famous people, I kind of don't give a shit. Right. So what I just concentrated on were digestible stories that I found interesting, that are often embarrassing, not, kind of like, I played the Hollywood Bowl. Who cares? Like more about things that happen to musicians that I thought would be relatable to other musicians or other creatives, actually. Yeah. Writers or performers or comedians or actors or comics, I should say. So that was where I started, and that's where. Yeah.
Well, you've anticipated a few of my questions in terms of the style of the book. This was the idea from the get-go. There was never a thought of doing a narrative memoir type of thing.
I just didn't. I knew that people enjoyed my stories during my solo shows, and I didn't know what type of book it could be, but I was on tour with the Bob Mould band, and we had an opener named Craig Finn, who's the lead singer of the Hold Steady. And Craig had this small book similar to that, but his was full of poems and fictional stories about the characters that he had created for his most recent solo record. And they sold really well. Yeah.
These kind of things do well at the merch table.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can't stream this.
Right.
You can't download that. So that got my head go, oh, maybe I could just make this 100-page digestible thing. Because I was also nervous about whether people would care at all. I didn't know if people would be interested in it. So I thought, well, just make something really digestible. I keep using that word, easy to read, fun to read, and see where that goes. And then, speaking of Evanston, I met with my friend Frida Love Smith, who is not only a published author, but a musician. She was in the Blake Babies, and I've known her for years, almost 20 years. And I asked her if she knew of an editor, because I needed feedback. I needed somebody to look at this from an outside perspective. Yep. And she said, I'll do it. And I said, well, thank you. That's great. I'd love to work with a friend. And then she said, I think you definitely need to find a designer, because people don't think about this. Every book actually does have a design to it. You open a book and it looks simple, but it's different than
typeface. And
everything, the feel, the cover. And I remembered that I had played a lawn show during COVID at this guy, Tim Hogan's house. It's a very distinct Evanston house, actually. It's on South Boulevard. It looks like a ski lodge.
Oh, okay.
The A-frame brown house. When I had a painting company, I painted that 25 years ago or something. But he and his wife Amy live there now, and I played their backyard. And he said to me either that time or another time, I'm a designer by trade. I do a lot of corporate work, and that's great because it pays the bills, but I really would love to do something fun. And if you ever have something fun, please keep me in mind. So I called him up, and he agreed to it, and I started sending him stories and photos, and he started coming back with this highly stylized approach. And I loved it. I was like, this is so cool what you're doing with this. Yeah. We could really have fun with this. And then I had the idea of 45s, and he came up with the idea.
It's like a zine kind of.
It is. It's like a magazine. Yeah. It feels like a graphic novel,
right,
and it looks like a magazine on the inside.
A lot of visuals, a lot of photos.
A lot of visuals. I think, I'm working on the second one now. I think the next one will have less photos and slightly longer stories. I want it to still be digestible, but I have a little bit more confidence now that people are interested.
Yes.
And I have stories that need detail, and I would say benefit from going a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep the 45s. I like that feel. And also just keep it, simple to pick up and blast through a couple chapters. But I thought Tim and Frida did an amazing job, and they're both on board for volume 2.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to volume 2. You've been a songwriter for a long time, but was prose writing ever a creative practice for you, or is this your first real crack at it?
I mean, I think I took some creative writing classes in school and probably wrote some awful poetry at some point, but no. And in fact, I was just telling my youngest daughter this story, another Evanston story. When my oldest daughter was maybe 7 or 8 years old, she had a friend in school, and they would have play dates. And at this time, I had my first major label record out with a band called Verboten. And the mom said, I'm going to buy your CD at the record store because I heard you're a musician and I want to support the arts. And I said, oh, thank you. And then a couple months later, there was a play date, and she said, I bought your CD, and I opened up the lyric sheet and all that, and your lyrics are not poetry. I was like, well, that's really blunt. I said, well, that's correct. They're lyrics to rock songs. But she was just brutal. Just like, you need to read some poetry. You need to, I did not respond the way I wanted to. But
that's great.
I just kind of walked away chuckling. Stories like that make me laugh.
Yes.
I feel like
some of your lyrics rhyme, right?
Hey, I use rhymezone.com. And rock music is such a different format. I think if I tried to I just do the best I can.
Yeah. Well, do you see any similarity between the way you approach writing these stories creatively and the way you write a song, or are they just completely different in terms of process and mindset?
Completely different.
Completely different.
Yeah.
So talk about writing the stories themselves.
There might be rhythms that are similar. There's rhythms to storytelling. There's rhythms to humor. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, so you mentioned rhythms and storytelling, and you already mentioned storytelling. You've shown a real talent for the storytelling as an art form in this book. And we just mentioned there's obviously storytelling in good songwriting. this standalone storytelling is a craft unto itself. And you mentioned that in your solo shows, you tell some stories, right? And so this is something that has always been important to you, the ability to tell a good story, to bring an audience along with you.
No, I started that maybe 9 years ago.
Okay. Telling the stories at your shows.
Yeah, I was doing, again, it comes back to Evanston, the Wine Goddess on Main Street. Diana is the wine goddess, and her husband, Rick, are good friends of mine. And they wanted to start doing music, so they asked me if I would do a solo show. This is in 2015. I wasn't doing solo shows then. I was working with a band, and I was touring with Bob Mould and Superchunk. So politely said no. But then my friend Nora O'Connor played there. She's obviously an amazing singer and songwriter, and the room was beautiful. And I said, you know what? This is great. I want to do this. And that got me into a rhythm of doing solo shows. And I had a number of friends or songwriters that I admired who were doing these living room show tours, which is kind of like playing the Wine Goddess, but in different cities. And I really wanted to pursue that, partially because I enjoy it, and partially because my work as a band person is completely relies on other people's vision and stories and preference. And I wanted to create work for myself to fill in those gaps when the bands that I tour in weren't working. So in 2018, I kind of got my first opportunity to play some of those living room shows that are well known. And I wanted to make a huge impression. So I remember specifically there's one in Baltimore called Club 603, which is still going strong and one of my favorites to play. I came up with this story where, I'll just say it like I say at the shows. I was in my backyard before the tour and saw my neighbor, and he kind of waved me over. I don't know him that well. His name is Ron. And we kind of leaned up on the fence and talked, and he said, hey, I see you're doing these living room shows. How do you feel about that? That's very different than playing, like Pritzker Pavilion or some of these bigger places that you play. Yeah. And I said, I'm a lifer. I'm a musician. I'll play to no one in a bar. I just want to keep playing. And he said, yeah, I understand that. But, some of these shows, you're playing to 10,000, 15,000 people. You're in the living room shows and, you're playing for 100 people. And I said, well, Ron, it's more like 50 people. And that's when I realized that I hate my neighbor, Ron. And people would get really upset because they can relate to that. Everybody has somebody in their life that kind of like poetry mom, that just
everybody's got
that talks shit to you. Like, what are you doing? Why are you having this horrible? Why are you saying these horrible things to me? And I would prolong that throughout the show about Ron. Yeah. And then finally
carry it through.
And then finally I would turn and I would say, you know what? We're going to make this the best rock concert that's ever happened. And we're going to show Ron what he's missing out on.
Ron in his place.
And I would crowd surf.
Oh, gosh.
And people would take pictures of it.
Yeah.
And so I remember Scott and Gene, who run that, they contacted a booking agent who does those things. They're like, you got to book this guy. And so that I started then where I just kind of took ownership of my own thing again.
Yes.
After being in my 20s and writing songs and releasing records and touring a lot, I was ready to kind of figure out my own thing. And I was happy to do it with true stories and made up stories. But either way, just creating a night that went beyond just the songs.
Yeah. But the art of the story, the telling of the story, just like you kind of described with that one, there is an art to this. There's an arc. There's pauses. There's a callback later. Mm-hmm. These things seem to come naturally to you. You kind of discovered that you have this talent.
I'm a fan of it. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm so much of the work that I appreciate, often in comedy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just incorporated that into the solo shows, and then it set up a nice foundation. And honestly, social media for me has been, as much as there's so much I don't like about it, and let's not talk about that. Yep. But for people like me, it has offered a platform to express humor, express ideas, political movements. I've done a little bit of activism and community, work.
Yep.
And it's very powerful for that. And without that, I would be a, aging songwriter with very little means to connect with people.
But it's allowed you to stretch these muscles of the storytelling and communicating in the short form.
So I'll occasionally make up stuff, or there's, really, I just did this living room show in Milwaukee. Michael Shannon and I have been doing all these R.E.M. music shows. Mm-hmm. Did this living room show in Milwaukee, and the owners were like, I think this is Bill Berry's childhood home.
Oh, wow.
And so that became this whole story, and which
that's
a podcast. Why don't I tell it?
We're here for your stories.
I didn't know
Jason.
these people, and I walked in, and they said, we've lived here for 20 plus years, and we've heard rumors that Bill Berry, this was his childhood home. And I said, you don't have verification on that? And they said, no, we'll just be like in the front yard, and somebody will come up, I used to live in this neighborhood, and Bill Berry, they would say that. And I said, well, I think I can find out for you.
I have his number on my phone.
Actually, I didn't have Bill's, but I had Bertus, their manager, I've become close with, but he was in Europe. So I took a picture of the living room, and I sent him the address, and I said, there's a possibility that this is Bill Berry's childhood home.
That I'm playing a show in.
I just happened to be playing a show in. Is there any way you could, ask Bill if you feel like it's a okay thing to ask? And then I did the show, and I stayed there, as I often do at these living room shows when you tour. They had an empty bedroom, and I went to bed that night wondering if I'm sleeping in Bill Berry's childhood bedroom,
Yes.
I wake up
taking the R.E.M. music project a
what
little
are the
too far.
What are the chances, right? So I wake up, and Bertus is like, it is his childhood home.
Oh, my gosh.
And he wants you to have his number. So here's Bill's number. I walk downstairs. Tom and Sue are the owners. And I said, Tom and Sue, I have good news for you. It is correct. I can verify it. And I'm about to send Bill Berry my first text. And the text was, hey, Bill, this is wild. I can't believe I'm here, and this is what happened. I'm going to be here for another 45 minutes before I go to my next show. Do you want me to take any pictures for you? He immediately texted back, can I call you?
Oh, wow.
And so I just call him. And he does not say hello or hey or what's it going. He just goes, the living room that you played in is the first time I first heard the Beatles. My older brother came. He just starts telling stories about the house.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing because they're cool stories. And I'm telling Tom and Sue, and they're laughing. And Bill said, are you with the owners right now? I said, yeah, they're right here. Tom and Sue, can I talk to them?
Yeah.
So I hand the phone to Tom, 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
They're like, yeah, it's right next to the big house near the park. That's still there, And finally, Tom gives the phone back to me, and Bill says, I'm all tingly.
Yeah.
I said, this is pretty wild, Bill. I got to say.
It may not be a coincidence, kind of universe brought people who have house concerts and brought you
they
there
don't
to
that
a
often.
place where
they've only had like 3.
Yeah.
And it had been over a 10-year period.
But still, it's the house.
It's the house.
Bill left something
So
there.
then I said, well, before I let you go, because we knew we were going to see each other in a few months, he said, I'll see you soon. I said, before I let you go, which bedroom is yours?
Yeah.
And he said, he described the upstairs perfectly. He moved away when he was 10, and he knew everything. He's like, okay, the bedroom across from the bathroom at the top of the stairs. I said, yeah, not that one. Walk down the hallway, turn to the left in the corner. That's mine. I was like, yep, that's the one I slept in. Just incredible. And then I did see him in Athens, and he the first thing he says is like, the Milwaukee house, just.
You were doing deep research for the project.
I love that I wasn't, and that it was a cool surprise.
Oh, that is so great. Back to the book for a second. You absolutely had me at the very first story in the book. Maybe it was the second one, about you and your 7th grade child who was having a hard time at school as a young, as we talked earlier, at that time, gay person who didn't dress like everyone else, maybe some bullying. In the story, you take her to the Riot Fest music festival to see one of her favorite bands. Such a great story on different levels, the parent-child aspect, the music saves us aspect. As a parent of queer kids, I'm getting choked up just talking about this now. It really hit me. It was a choice to put this story not only in the book, but front and center in the book, I'm guessing.
I got Eva's approval, of course. Yeah. It is a story that I was telling at shows, and before every tour, I would get her approval for that. I didn't want to be talking publicly about something that she wasn't comfortable with.
Right.
There was a little bit of thought in that. I mean, one thing that I know from that story that you didn't list, but to me is the biggest one, is just finding community.
Yes.
Because she walks into the festival and she sees all these people dressed like her. And that's we all have had that, us music fans.
Yep.
Maybe, of course, outside of that too, you find your people, you find your people. And so it was a huge day for her, a huge day for me. It's actually the same day my first grandchild was born.
Wow.
So that day will be, etched in there forever. Because I've never done a book before, and I kind of looked at all the stories that I had, and I did want to lead with one that I knew would connect with people.
Yeah.
So that there was some thought into that, and Frida agreed.
Yeah, it worked for me for sure. I mean, I put the book down and said, Susan, you're going to have to read this book, to my wife, after only having read that one story. So
I appreciate that.
It worked here.
Oh, thank you.
So, Jason, we aren't going to be able to walk and talk through the various steps and stages of your musical career. We would be here all week. I mean, I would like to do that, but kind of like your book where you're just going to pick and choose a couple of things. I would like to kind of start at the beginning. 10-year-old Jason playing guitar in the punk rock band Verboten. The reason a lot of us know this story is because Dave Grohl famously told the story in his Sonic Highways TV show and his memoir of coming up to Evanston to visit his cousin, Tracy Bradford, who was a lead singer in your band, right? This story is fascinating in itself, and the pictures and videos of 10-year-old Jason as punk rock guitarist, they're something else. People should just look it up, because I'm laughing just picturing them in my head right now.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the second phase of the story, the making of Verboten, the musical.
Okay.
I find this fascinating. The story of your punk band from your early youth, like 10, 11 years old, right, was turned into a staged musical here in Chicago, 2020 or so. Talk a little bit about how that happened.
It happened because of that HBO show
that
Dave Grohl did. A playwright here in Chicago named Britt, who's a part of a Red Orchid Theater. He's an ensemble member. He had published, 30 plays at that point. Very experienced, interesting guy, a lot of dark stuff, but a master of dialogue. And our kids went to the same school here in Evanston, and he reached out through other friends and said, I'd love to take Jason out for a beer and pitch him an idea I have. And I was like, well, I like beer. And I live in Evanston, and I probably will be having a beer that night anyways. He came up with this idea of making a musical about Verboten, and I remember thinking it was absurd and not having much faith in it being a possibility, but why not? We had some kind of ground rules. I talked to the band members, and he wanted to interview all four of us, which I liked, because we decided that he could take some liberties with the story, which was twofold. One, to protect some people in the story. By the way, every autobiography does that. And number two, and this isn't an autobiography.
Right.
And number two, this is not a documentary or anything. Make it entertaining.
It's a story.
Make it entertaining. Yeah. It's a great story to just tell.
Yes.
That doesn't mean it translates to stage.
Right.
So there were liberties taken, but Brett did a great job of capturing the spirit of Verboten, and that's what was important to us.
Yeah.
So we worked on it for 5 years, and it died a number of times. Yeah. And I have to give him credit for having the probably experience, but also just the determination to pick it back up. I remember I had, a slew of punk rock songs that I'd written because he did ask me to write the music.
Right.
He wrote the book, I wrote the music. I was kind of happy. I was happy with some of these punk rock songs, and I was pitching them to other people for other ideas, not musicals, but just like, I've got these. Let's make some music.
Yeah.
I thought it was dead a number of times, but then he finally got back up and running. And the House Theater, rest in peace, unfortunately, was extremely supportive and wide open to doing something pretty weird, which is. This is another kind of, I don't want to say rule, but I went to the mat to say there has to be 7 or 8 actual punk rock songs. I don't mean like glossed over,
Yep.
smoothed out for musicals. I mean like there's an audience for this story who will be my age or older with their arms folded in the back row.
They'll see right through
and
it.
we need to hit them right here,
Yeah.
right in the forehead. And that also included bringing in a drummer, a friend of mine, because they wanted the actors to play the music, and they did. But there are certain songs where it just needed a propulsion that very few people can do. So Tim Remus was brought in, and they actually gave him a role, which is cool. That's
great.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about, I find it interesting from a songwriting perspective. What we're talking about here is not what they call a jukebox musical, right? For example, like Mamma Mia, where they take
Or Green Day. Yeah.
Right, where they take an existing body of songs and create a story about it. What you did here is more like what Anais Mitchell did so wonderfully with Hadestown, right? Where the songs are written specifically as part of this project to
although
help carry this story
hers is
along.
unique in that she wrote it before it was a play. That's very unique. That's like Hair or Tommy or something,
Okay.
you know? So I had a story to work with.
Yes.
Lyrically, much easier for me because it's like these two characters are on stage and this is what's happening with them.
Yeah.
So now I know when I write split single songs, I write the music and the melody first. And if I like that, then I'll write lyrics. And often I get to the lyric point and I go, what the fuck am I going to write about?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's an energy and a mood to it that creates things, but it's often just like,
So you literally, for your other projects, music first, almost always.
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 Yeah.
And here, kind of opposite.
Not the opposite, but these, I mean, I laugh now because at one point Brett was like, I need a song about the Jason character trying to get control of his life. So I wrote a song called Control. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like musicals don't lend themselves to metaphors. It's what I want.
Yes.
State what you want. And then you can have fun with it. You know, Brett's a great collaborator and he let me create a lot of backstory for some of these characters. And there's one scene that I just created because I thought they made Zach's dad character beyond doting. His dad in real life is doting and supportive in a beautiful way and comes from a different musical background.
Okay.
But we took that personality and blew it up so that he's always in the practice room talking about seeing Jefferson Airplane in 1967. And 3 of the band members, especially Zach, is like, dude! But Chris in the play, it loves it, right? So there's one person in the band who just can't get enough of Zach's dad. And but she creates this really funny scene at the end. I thought it would be cool if the Zach's dad character, for the character to walk into the rehearsal room alone and imagine him being a rock star. So I wrote this. It can only be described as an arena rock song. It sounds like, you know, Aerosmith and Kiss and all of those, and it's called Rock Dreams Never Die. Okay. And that brought the house down every night. So it was fun. It's so cool that Brett allowed me space to write things like that.
I talked to another songwriter who has done this, and they said that one thing they learned when writing for the stage is that in that situation, the songs, a lot of times, their job is to move the story forward in some way. They can't just be filler or
you don't want to say what
reflections.
was just said. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
that's a tricky, and that is
hard.
tricky. Yeah. And then the director, Nathan, was great because I remember we got to dress rehearsals in Chopin Theater. I think there might have even been a premiere show already. And he said, the first song, which is called New Song, I need there to be another verse. So that night I wrote another verse. And then the next morning he said, this is great. Let's add a third. So I wrote 2 verses as the show was opening.
So they had to perform the new verses.
Oh, these actors. That was no problem. No, there were changes in dialogue. There were changes in, they handled that great.
That's pretty impressive.
And there was even a children's song. We got to dress rehearsals. The Tracy character puts on her old childhood records because she's kind of thinking about her childhood, and you know, there's so much struggle with her parents. She's just thinking she's just getting nostalgic. And so she puts on what we would think of as like a Free to Be You and Me or something like that. Yeah. But I had to create this. You can't put that on. You create your own music. Yeah. So I had to write that very quickly, and I didn't have it recorded. So I think for some of the early previews, it's a recording of me and my guitar. And then we rushed over to Electrical Audio, Steve Albini's studio, and recorded this. It's kind of a Sesame Street type feel. Yeah. I don't even remember what the song is called, but it's really fun to record. We got a tack piano. We just try to make it very like clunky and 70s.
An HR Puffin stuff kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And so that type of in the moment creativity was, oh man, that felt amazing. Yeah. And then to have
I can see the look on your face right now.
Well, and then it blew up, it started selling out. We got great reviews, and it was just an amazing time right before the door closed. Right before COVID. Yeah.
So did I read somewhere there's maybe talk of reviving the project in some form?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually I had coffee with Anna Shapiro, who's a Tony Award-winning director, in Evanston 2 days ago.
Of course.
And she's been working with us for years on it. I would love for that to happen. It's
a restaging.
Or a film.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That would be great. I look forward to that.
Or both.
Yes, let's do both.
I would like both.
Okay. And a book.
Whatever. Pajamas. I'll be the Gene Simmons of musicals. Caskets. Verboten casket.
Yes. That actually would work. All right. Let's talk about the R.E.M. project. This is something you are very much in the middle of currently. This originated from your collaborations with the most excellent Chicago-based actor, Michael Shannon. Let's talk about Michael Shannon for a second here and what he brings to this project. You two have done previously to this shows of Lou Reed songs. I saw you do the T-Rex thing. I saw him do Iggy Pop. And we've had a guest on this podcast, Logan Ledger, who is a Nashville musician. And he was in the TV series
George and Tammy.
He played one of the band members.
Oh, cool.
And this was put together, the music of that show was put together by T-Bone Burnett. This was a very serious musical project. And Logan is a super talented vocalist. He styled himself after these old classic country singers. And he couldn't talk enough about the job Michael did taking on, not just the acting of George Jones, becoming the character, but taking on this. They weren't sure if he was going to sing the songs, who was going to sing the songs in the show. And Michael just totally took it, and he was so great. Yeah. It was amazing. So this is an amazing talent that he's bringing to this R.E.M. project.
It's interesting you bring that up. No one has brought that up before in an interview, and it actually had a massive effect on our project in that Michael worked with a vocal coach in Nashville that he still works with.
Okay.
I think his name is Ron.
I wonder.
I think it is. A good Ron. He's a good Ron. And the difference between Michael singing on the first tour that we did, which was good, to
before this,
it was after George and Tammy, but the first we did Murmur in 2024, only a 9-date tour, very very short. He had never toured before, so we were kind of like, let's see how this goes. And now it shows how hard he's worked at it with Ron, but mostly on his own. Mm-hmm. And so the George and Tammy project really, I don't know if this could have happened without that, because right now what we're seeing is a culmination of Michael's hard work, the band gelling, people talking about the shows. But I think bigger than us, it says so much about the legacy of R.E.M., not just the music.
Right.
The music is incredible and why we're there, but the way that band conducted itself throughout its career and continues to conduct itself is a lifeline for a lot of people. And it's funny, Anna actually at our coffee the other day, she said, nostalgia offers people a time when they felt safe. And that's what's happening with this project, where first of all, there's joy. You know, when I look out, I see people who are having the time of their lives. And I'm not taking ownership of that. I'm just saying this.
Providing this.
Yes. In fact, when we played in North Carolina just a couple months ago, I had coffee with my friend Jim Wilbur, who plays guitar in Superchunk. And I asked, because I've toured with him a long time and I'm close with him. I said, what do you make of this? What did you,
this phenomenon?
Well, just this thing that you saw last night. I loved his take on it. He said, what I saw were people deeply connected to the experience. I love that. Not to the band, not to the experience.
Yes.
And of course, Michael is the leader of that. And he has this very unusual combination of compelling and also chaos. Like you don't quite know what's next. So
Even you don't.
You can't take your eyes off of him,
Yeah.
you know? And that, you know, people are like, oh, he's an actor. And it's like, no. Fronting a rock band is a completely different thing. And I think the most important thing personally is that people see how much we love the music.
Yes.
That's what would be important to me. And that it seems to be happening because people keep showing it's audience driven. As Michael said, if people stop coming, we will stop doing it.
Well, let's just talk about what's happened here. You, a couple of years ago, played Space down the street here in Evanston, 300 people.
Yeah.
This year you were at Metro,
Twice.
1,000 people.
It started at Metro. So we did Metro for Murmur.
Yeah.
Did not sell out, but it was the first time we did it.
Yeah.
And we announced it 30 days before it happened. During the summer, no one goes to club shows in the summer.
Right.
There's so much competition on a Sunday. And we still sold 925 tickets.
Yeah.
And that's when I started getting offers from around the country because people are like, this is something, you know.
But to follow through,
so Metro
twice, now Riviera in the fall.
It's almost sold out.
3,000 people.
2550.
Yeah.
But who's counting?
But that just shows you in a couple of years how the people are coming, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And it's not just here. When we played Cleveland on a Tuesday on this tour, almost 1,000 people.
Wow.
We'd never played Cleveland before. Yeah. We'd never played Austin before, 1,450.
And you have done Europe or are going to Europe?
We've been to the UK.
UK, okay.
And we've played in Dublin.
Okay.
We're going back to the UK and Dublin and Belfast in September. But tickets are okay.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you know,
it's kind of crazy right now.
The US?
Yeah.
I mean, yes. The whole idea is crazy.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about you are the musical director of this project, right? From a creative perspective, you and Michael have said this is not a tribute band. In fact, you don't even really have a name for what you do. You call it.
We have a really long name.
Yeah, but it's not like the R.E.M. tribute project name, right? So what kind of creative decisions are you making as you put this together? The music is complicated enough to get a handle on, but there's also bigger picture kind of approaches that you're taking here.
I mean, for lack of a better term, I manage the band and am the musical director. But, you know, one way to be a very effective or successful musical director is to bring on incredibly talented musicians. It's kind of like being a producer of a record, you know, and I've worked with all these people before and they're dear friends. So that, I mean, the whole thing, it checks so many marks that are nice.
Yeah.
And I'm, you know, as a 55-year-old musician who's been doing this a long time, I'm very grateful and I can recognize when something is a good thing. And I work very hard to not fuck that up. Right down to like travel, hotels, schedule, you know, like there's ways to do this where we can be comfortable. And I pay a lot of attention to that. I had a long phone call with our keyboardist the other day about ways, he wasn't uncomfortable, but it's very important for him to be comfortable on the next tour. And so I just go through every band member. We just talk about what works for that.
Yeah. And how about musically, specifically the way you're
They better do what I tell them. No.
But the way you're approaching the songs and, you know, note for note or what is really happening.
We start there.
Yeah.
We start there. And then, you know, there are some songs that by R.E.M. that are highly produced. Well, in this last tour, we did a song called The Great Beyond. It's highly produced, and there's all these different sounds. So Dog, the guitarist, myself, and Vijay, the keyboardist, have to decide what melodies we're going to take on, what's important, which ones we can embellish on. There's a song we did called The Lifting that I don't know if there's any guitars on it, you know. So it's just, I played EBow, you know. We just kind of added sounds and created swells and things. But the early stuff is just jangly guitars and really just such inventive guitar playing and really fun to play.
Do you think that you have your decades of being a band member supporting Bob Mould, Superchunk, there are things you learned from being a good band member and being successful in that role that has allowed you to make this project successful as musical director?
Absolutely. There are some ground rules that I've learned. I think I knew them instinctually, but if I followed them, things went better. And one of them is let the singer, not even let, the singer should decide how the show goes. Set list, they're carrying the whole thing.
Yeah.
And also, I remember when I first joined Superchunk, we were playing, maybe my first show in Chicago was like the first time I'm playing in front of my friends and family, and Mac wrote the set list. And I remember, it might've been the second time we played in Chicago or something, but I remember looking at the set list, I'm going like, man, there's like 5 songs I would love to play in this, but I'm just going to, and it was a great show.
Yeah.
It's just like, just shut up, or like on this last Michael Shannon tour, you call it R.E.M, I call it Michael Shannon. Yeah. We were in North Carolina at Cat's Cradle, and we get to the last song, and I realized that Michael had not introduced the band. I'm not going to say anything to him.
Yeah.
If he doesn't introduce the band at that show, who cares? Right. It doesn't matter. We ended the song and we're doing, what I call like the fireworks, and he introduced the band and it was perfect, like he realized it too. Yeah. You have to just allow the front person to do their thing and not dictate to them what they should be doing, or like, you forgot this and you got to mention the crew. No, shut up. Yes. Just let them do it,
Say hi to my mom.
Oh, I did say, actually, at the New York show, I approached him as we were walking to the stage, and I said, I know, as a person who fronts shows, that sometimes it's nice to have this little gem if you want to use it, and I'm going to give you one of those. You do not have to use it. I don't care. Mm-hmm. But I was playing mandolin for the first time on stage on this tour, and my mom and stepdad were there, and they gave me my first mandolin, and they were there. If he wanted to say something.
Yes.
And if he doesn't, it's fine. I love them. They love me, And he said, thank you, and he did mention it. But
good.
Well, that's just an example of like.
We were talking before I hit record about Michael Shannon a bit. And I want to get this out into the universe because maybe it'll happen. I listened to you guys do a podcast, Talk House, where there's just the two of you. Yes. And I said to you earlier, he should have a podcast. Yeah. He likes asking questions. He was really good at interviewing you.
I was really surprised at that one because what Talk House does, it's a great podcast.
It is good.
Run by my friend Josh Modell, is bring 2 creatives together to just talk about creativity.
There is no host. It's
no host.
2 guests.
It's a conversation, but Michael turned it into an interview. And that without telling me, by the way. Yes. And he came in so prepared. And just
you had to pronounce your last name.
He just put all of the spotlight on me. And that was very sweet of him and very, very fun. But I kept trying to turn it back, and he just wasn't having it. And part of it is that he's generous with those things, and also he's tired of talking about film. And not in a self-righteous way, but like when he has to promote a film, the number of interviews that he does with the same questions,
even in the same day, they'll do a bunch, right?
Oh, tons.
Yes.
Yeah. And you have to I've done those with him for this project, and he's really good at creating different answers. I've learned a lot from him about that, because you're almost entertaining yourself too. Like
at some point,
if you just say the same thing over and over, you can drive yourself crazy. Yeah. So he's really good at that. He will not do a podcast, but
he won't.
No,
even if we beg. Well, we'll see about that.
He likes playing rock shows. I'm thankful for that.
I'll talk to him.
Okay, good.
Here at Tell You What HQ, we talked about this earlier. We have often hosted house concerts here in our various places we've lived. We have had so much fun with them. They're like a win-win situation. You've talked about how you've done these. Talk about house show concept, or living room shows as you call them, and what they've meant to you and what you think they represent.
It's such a great platform for someone like me, again, not a household name, because basically the business template for playing a club, if I brought 50 people to a rock club in Richmond, Virginia, I'd probably get $100 or something.
Right.
And
That's not an exaggeration.
That makes sense because they have to pay for the room. They have to pay the sound person. They have to pay the door person. There's all these things that have to happen. But when you play a living room show, you get all the money. So if I sell 50 tickets for $30 each, you get that.
It's more than $100.
And then you sell merch.
Yeah.
And it's early. It's 8 o'clock. It's BYOB. Yep. It's seated.
It's an attentive audience.
There's so much about it that I love and that the attendees love.
Yes.
The toughest thing about it is that the general population does not understand what it is. So I list the tickets and they go, where the hell is this thing? And it's like, well, it's at an address that you will receive when you buy the ticket because this is someone's home. They don't want their address public.
Yes. But then when they go, they're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Mostly, yeah. It's mostly positive.
Yeah.
I mean, I say mostly. I can't think of one complaint,
Yes.
but that's the hurdle is to, promote and advertise something that seems vague.
Yes.
And I try to, on my social media posts, I try to describe what it is and make people comfortable. I have friends in Minneapolis who supported me, loved Verbo when we were all young, and then started to hire me for private things in Minneapolis. And then I said to them when I started doing these shows, you guys have a great house. I love you guys. Would you be up for doing a living room show? They're like, no. And I understand that. Yeah. So I went to a different house in Minneapolis and they came. And after I hit the last note, they made a beeline to me and they said, all of the shows at our house next time because they just needed to see it.
Yes.
It's just a bunch of indie rock geeks, male and female and every gender, just enjoying a show until 9:30 p.m. and then leaving the house.
And walking home, a lot of them.
I've been doing these for a long time. I've never heard of any kind of behavior issues or like it's, but I don't blame anybody if they're hesitant about it. I understand that for hosting. Once you see it, it's like, oh, okay, I get what this is.
My daughter is a musician and she was in Pittsburgh and she had a music community there and they were doing these basement shows. And I said to her, Lucy, I'm thinking about doing this house concert thing. I think it's a cool idea. How do I do it? And she said, well, Dad, you find a band, you ask them if they'll play in your house and you invite your friends over. Yeah. I was like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
There's not that much more to it than that at some level.
Well,
at least to get started.
I tell you what, John Stirratt said one of the funniest things to me a couple months ago because he has the Autumn Defense and they do similar things. And it's not, it's not Wilco where it's this built-in thing. And similar to me, it's not Bob Mould or whatever band. Mm-hmm. He called it 1,000 emails for $1,000.
Yes.
And that resonated
That's
with
pretty
me.
Close.
Because people will reach out. What I'll do is I'll make a post. I'm saying I would like to do some living room shows. I'm looking for hosts. And then I get, fortunately, a lot of responses and they're great. But some of them have no idea what it is and think that I'm just looking for a place to play and that's going to be them and a couple other people on the couch. And it's like, no, this is work. I need to.
So there ends up being a lot of back and forth.
A little bit of like, well, for instance, somebody reached out from Walla Walla, Washington, and that's a great routing for me to get to Seattle. I'm confident I can do well in Seattle. That show sold out. And I said to this guy from Walla Walla, or maybe it was another city, but I said, there's two ways we can go about this. We can do a ticketed show, and I've never played solo in Walla Walla, so I would rely heavily on you being a music community leader.
Right.
If you think people that like me and bands I play in and my kind of orbit, this can go great. If you don't feel like you have that community, we shouldn't do this. Mm-hmm. Or you can pay me a flat fee and I'll come play for your friends.
Yes.
And
he could take donations to offset that.
Sure.
Himself.
Yeah. Or I have some hosts who just go in with like 4 or 5 friends and they all kind of kick in. Went with ticketed and it sold out.
That's great.
So that sometimes it goes great. And sometimes it's like, there's a couple markets that I won't mention right now where I need to like send an email and be like, how are we doing with this? How are we feeling? Because if it's 4 tickets, I can't do it.
We love it. We've been doing it for a number of years. So I've actually built up this huge email list.
Cool.
Hundreds of people.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about, 1,000 emails for $1,000. I send out an email to a few hundred people.
Yeah.
And 40 or 50 will show up.
That's great. When you have that, it's special.
Yeah.
It's a really special thing. I love touring that way. Everything about it is great. You get some interesting merch table conversations.
Yes,
but
sure.
that'll probably be a chapter in a future book.
All right, Jason, I think there are so many things we could have talked about, but this has been great.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Plug the book one more time. Mostly the Van. Where can folks find
Porchlight Books.
Porchlight Books?
It's an online book distributor. They're amazing. They're out of Milwaukee. They are doing free shipping because I basically said to them, "How can I compete with the big one?" And they said,
"That's great."
Yeah. So they have signed copies. They have regular copies, and I love working with them.
And the R.E.M. shows are continuing.
We're playing the Newport Folk Festival in July. When do you think this will come out?
Before then.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
I start a solo tour.
Probably come out in May.
Great. I start a solo tour May 2nd. That goes through June 10th.
Oh, great.
All of those shows and ticket links are on my social media. And then, we're at Newport Folk Festival. We're going to the UK in September, and then we come back for those 3 shows. Iowa Codfish Hollow Barnstormers. You know this place in Iowa? It's a barn. It's a great venue. That's sold out. Riviera is very close to sold out. And then in Detroit, tickets are good, not sold out yet.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing more solo stuff. I hope to have volume 2 out by the end of the year.
By the end of the year, that's great.
Yeah.
I look forward to that. Well, thanks for coming by the Epiplex. Feel free to stop by and cut the grass anytime.
I would love to. I'm looking for things to take up my time.
I will leave the garage door open. Thanks, Jason.
I'm gonna tell